If you've got an older home, there's a good chance you've got an S-trap hiding under at least one of your sinks. And if you've done any research, you already know that S-traps are no longer up to code, and they can actually let sewer gas leak right into your living space. But here's where most people panic. They think fixing it means ripping open walls, adding new vent pipes, and spending a small fortune on a plumber. Well, I've got great news for you. In this video, I'm going to show you a simple method to fix an S-trap without touching a single wall. Plus, stick around to the end, where I'll share a bonus tip that can help you check every drain in your house for the same problem in about 5 minutes. This is one of those repairs that sounds intimidating but is genuinely straightforward once you understand what's going on. You don't need any special skills. You don't need expensive tools, and you can have this done in about an hour. The key is understanding why the S-trap is a problem in the first place, and then using a clever little device that does the job of a vent pipe without ever going into your wall. So let's start with the basics. Take a look under your sink right now. If your drain pipe goes down from the sink, curves into a U shape, and then curves again, going down into the floor or back wall in a sort of S pattern, that's an S-trap. Now compare that to a P-trap, which goes down, curves into that same U shape, but then goes straight back horizontally into the wall. The difference matters a lot, and here's why. That U-shaped curve at the bottom is supposed to hold a small amount of standing water at all times. That little pool of water acts as a seal that blocks sewer gases from coming up through the pipe and into your home. With a proper P-trap that connects to a vented drain line in the wall, that water seal stays put because the vent allows air in behind the flowing water, so it drains smoothly without creating suction. But with an S-trap, there's no vent. So when water flows down through that S-curve, it can create a siphon effect. Kind of like when you suck on a straw and the liquid keeps flowing even after you stop. That siphon pulls all the water right out of the trap. And once that water seal is gone, you've got an open highway for sewer gas to come straight up into your kitchen or bathroom. That's the problem we're solving today. And we're going to solve it without cutting into a single wall. Here's what you'll need for this project. For tools, grab a pair of channel lock pliers, a pipe wrench, or a good adjustable wrench, a hacksaw or a PVC pipe cutter, a measuring tape, and a small bucket, and some old towels. For materials, you'll need a 1.5-inch P-trap kit. That's the standard size for most bathroom and kitchen sinks. If you've got a kitchen sink with a larger drain, you might need a 2-inch kit. So measure your existing pipe before you head to the store. You'll also need a 1.5-inch admittance valve, which you might see labeled as an AAV at the hardware store. Some folks call them Studer vents after the most popular brand. And finally, pick up a 1.5-inch sanitary T-fitting and some PVC cement and primer if you're working with PVC pipe. If your pipes are chrome or ABS, make sure your fittings match. Bring a photo of your current setup to the hardware store. Trust me, it saves a second trip every time. Before you do anything else, shut off the water supply to that sink. You'll find the shut-off valves on the hot and cold supply lines underneath the sink, usually right near the wall. Turn them clockwise until they stop. Then turn on the faucet to release any water still sitting in the lines. Now place your bucket directly under the trap, because there's going to be water sitting in that U-shaped curve, and it's going to come out when you disconnect things. Lay your towels down around the base of the cabinet to catch any drips. I also like to put on a pair of rubber gloves for this part, because the water that sits in an old trap isn't exactly what you'd call fresh. One more thing. If you've got a garbage disposal, make sure it's switched off at the breaker, not just the wall switch. Better safe than sorry. By the way, if you're finding this advice helpful, you should know it's just a small sample of what I've put into my new guide, The Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It's packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let's continue. Now it's time to take out that old S-trap. Start at the slip nut connections. These are the large nuts that connect the trap to the tailpiece coming down from the sink drain and to the pipe going into the floor or wall. Most of the time you can loosen these by hand, but if they've been there for 20 years, you'll probably need your channel locks. Turn the slip nuts counterclockwise to loosen them. Go slowly and keep that bucket positioned right underneath, because water is coming. Once both slip nuts are loose, carefully pull the S-trap assembly free. Sometimes it takes a little wiggling, especially if there's old plumber's putty or corrosion holding things in place. Set the old trap aside and take a look at what you're left with. You should see the tailpiece hanging down from the sink drain above and the drain pipe stub coming up from the floor or out from the wall below. This is a good time to inspect both of those connection points. Look for any corrosion, cracks, or rough edges. If the tailpiece looks rough, now's the perfect time to replace it with a new one from your kit. Wipe everything down with a clean rag so you've got a clear view of what you're working with. Here's where the magic happens. What you're going to do is replace that S-shaped configuration with a proper P-trap that drains horizontally, and then add an air admittance valve above it to act as your vent. But first, you need to figure out your measurements. Hold your new P-trap up to the tailpiece and look at where the horizontal arm of the trap lines up with the drain pipe in the wall or floor. If your drain goes into the floor, you'll need to use an elbow fitting to redirect that pipe so the P-trap's horizontal arm can connect to it going into the wall direction. If your drain already goes into the wall, you're in luck because the P-trap's outlet arm can connect almost directly. Dry fit everything first. That means assemble all the pieces without glue or tightening. Just hand snug, so you can see how it all lines up. You want the horizontal arm of the P-trap to have a slight downward slope heading toward the wall, about 1/4 inch a drop per foot. That's just enough to keep water flowing without racing through so fast that it siphons. If the tailpiece is too long, mark it with a pencil and cut it down with your hacksaw or pipe cutter. I always measure twice and cut once on this step, because once you cut that tailpiece short, you can't put it back. The sanitary T fitting goes on the horizontal arm between the P-trap outlet and the wall connection. This T is where your air admittance valve will sit, pointing straight up. Make sure the T is oriented correctly with the branch opening facing up. Once your dry fit looks good and everything lines up with a nice gentle slope, it's time to make it permanent. Start by connecting the P-trap to the tailpiece. Slide the slip nut and washer onto the tailpiece first. Then push the trap up into position and hand tighten the slip nut. You want it snug, then give it about a quarter turn more with your channel locks. Do not over-tighten these. I've seen more cracked fittings from guys muscling down on slip nuts than from any other mistake. The plastic threads only need to be snug enough to compress the washer and create a seal. Next, connect the horizontal arm of the P-trap to your sanitary tee. If you're working with PVC, this is where you'll use your primer and cement. Apply the purple primer to both the outside of the pipe and the inside of the fitting. Then apply the PVC cement to both surfaces and push them together with a quarter twist. Hold it steady for about 15 seconds. That joint sets up fast, so make sure your alignment is right before you commit. Then connect the outlet side of the tee to the drain pipe going into the wall. Again, if it's a slip joint connection, use the slip nut and washer. If it's a permanent PVC connection, use primer and cement. The whole assembly should now look like a proper P-trap, with a T-fitting on the horizontal arm and one open branch of the T pointing straight up toward the underside of the sink cabinet. Now let's install the air admittance valve. This little device is what makes this whole project possible without ripping into walls. An air admittance valve is a one-way valve that lets air into the drain system when water flows, which prevents that siphon effect we talked about earlier. But it stays closed when air isn't needed, so sewer gas can't escape through it. It does exactly what a vent pipe through your roof does, just locally, right under your sink. Thread or glue the air admittance valve into the top of your sanitary tee. Most AAVs for residential sinks simply thread right on. Make sure it's sitting straight up and that it's positioned at least 4 inches above the top of the P-trap's weir, which is the highest point of water in the trap. This is actually a code requirement in most areas. Also, make sure the valve is accessible and not buried behind storage under the sink, because if it ever needs to be replaced down the road, you want to be able to get to it. Once it's threaded in, snug it up by hand. These don't need to be cranked down with a wrench. Now, the moment of truth. Turn your shutoff valves back on slowly, counterclockwise, and let the faucet run for a solid 30 seconds. While the water is running, get down there with a flashlight and check every single connection point. Look at the slip nuts, the cemented joints, and the base of the air admittance valve. You're looking for any drips, any moisture, any weeping at the joints. If you see a drip at a slip nut, tighten it just a tiny bit more, maybe 1/8 of a turn. Then let the water run again. Once everything is dry, plug the sink and fill it up about halfway. Then pull the plug and let it all drain at once. This rush of water is the real test because it mimics heavy use. Watch the trap while it drains. You should see water flow through smoothly, and when it stops, there should be water sitting in the bottom of that U-shaped curve. That's your water seal, and it should stay right there. If you hear a gurgling sound and the water gets sucked out of the trap, your air admittance valve might not be opening properly, and we'll cover that in a moment. Let's talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them. First, if you hear gurgling and the trap is siphoning dry, even with the air admittance valve installed, The most likely cause is that the AAV is defective or stuck closed. Remove it and test it by gently pressing on the top. You should feel it open with light pressure and close on its own. If it's stuck, replace it. They're inexpensive, and it's not worth trying to fix a faulty one. Second, if you've got a slow leak at one of the slip nut connections, it's usually because the nylon washer inside is pinched or not seated properly. Take the connection apart, check the washer, make sure it's sitting flat in the right direction, with the bevel side facing the fitting, and reassemble. Third, if water drains very slowly after the new installation, check that your horizontal arm has that slight downward slope toward the wall. If it's level or slopes back toward the trap, water will pool and drain sluggishly. You might need to trim the tailpiece a little shorter to get the right pitch. Fourth, if you notice a sewer gas smell even though the trap is holding water, check the air admittance valve. Put your nose near it. If you can smell gas, the valve isn't sealing properly when closed. Replace it with a new one. Fifth, if your pipes just don't seem to line up no matter what you do, remember that you can use extension tubes and different lengths of straight pipe between fittings to bridge the gap. The hardware store sells tailpiece extensions and various slip joint tubes for exactly this situation. The good news is, if you follow the steps we've covered, you should be able to avoid most of these issues entirely. Now, for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning, here's how to check every drain in your house for a potential S-trap problem in just a few minutes. Go to every sink, tub, and shower in your home. Run water for about 15 seconds, then stop and wait about 30 seconds. Now lean down close to the drain and sniff. If you catch even a faint whiff of sewer gas, that drain's trap may be siphoning dry, which means it could have an S-trap or a venting issue. Another quick test is to watch the water level in your toilet bowls. If a toilet's water level drops noticeably after you run a nearby sink, that's a sign of a shared venting problem. Identifying these issues now lets you fix them one at a time on your own schedule, rather than finding out the hard way when your house smells like a sewer on a hot summer afternoon. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one.